Hello, my name is Kirsten May, and I'm an intake therapist here at Community Partners. Today, I'm here to talk more about our emotions and how to best control our actions when we're in a world that is out of our control. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic. It has been so hard to be in a place of losing so much control in our daily lives that sometimes our emotions can run a little haywire. So, I have some skills today that we can learn to use when we are feeling either really angry, sad, worried, or just plain out of control. So I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen with you all. So emotional regulation. So first, to start out with, what is emotional regulation? So emotional regulation is about learning to cope with our emotions in new and effective ways. And we can control our emotions, or our emotions control us. In the latter, we would really hope that we can better control our emotions. We can't always control how we feel, but we can control our reactions or our choices to how we feel in the moment. So what are emotions? So emotions are signals from our body that tell us what is happening. So if something is pleasurable, we usually feel good or happy. And if something distressing or really painful is happening, we're going to feel bad or maybe angry or sad. Now I'm going to talk about primary and secondary emotions. So primary emotions are our initial reactions to maybe what is happening to us. So for example, we might feel surprised, happy, glad if we won something in a raffle, or another way that we won something. Or maybe if someone passes away or dies or is no longer in our life, we might feel really sad, frustrated, angry. And these emotions are usually primary emotions, the first thing that comes to our mind. And now we're going to talk about secondary emotions. So secondary emotions is kind of after the first thought of our feelings. So these are emotional reactions that are following our feelings. So maybe, for example, you yelled at your partner or child because they did something that made you angry. And the anger came on really quickly. That was the first gut reaction to the event. And maybe a little later, you might feel really guilty about how angry you got earlier. So that's an afterthought. So again, your feelings about your feelings are the secondary emotions. This next slide talks about kind of emotions in our body and our brain and how they connect. So emotions are chemical and electrical signals in our body that alert us what is happening. And emotions usually come from our senses. And as we know, our five senses are sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. And then the signal in our brain that we're feeling travels down in what's called our limbic system within our brains. So the limbic system is connected to the rest of our brains, and it kind of tells our bodies what to do after we have an emotional response in a given situation. So the reason I talk about this in our limbic system and our brain and how everything works is because it's really important to recognize how our emotions work so we can better learn how to make better choices when we are feeling a certain way. So the next part, recognizing our emotions. So now that we know what they are and the process of emotions in our brains, we kind of want to learn and recognize when emotions come up for us. So first, learning how to recognize our emotions and their effect on our life is the first step to controlling those high intensity emotional reactions that sometimes come up. So to better control this, it's necessary to slow down our process so that we can better examine what's happening. And I also do a metaphor of maybe a tidal wave. So when we're at the beach and there's a huge wave coming and we don't see it, it's going to crash and it's going to be kind of really crazy at that moment. So the tidal wave of emotions often hit us from the back. We don't know what's happening and it just is super there and it's on us. So after that is examined, we can make healthier choices once we're aware and we recognize the emotions as they come up in our daily life. The next thing I'm going to talk about is maybe some skills that we can use when we're feeling really out of control, now that we learned how to recognize our emotions. And by using these skills, we can help gain better control of our choices to our emotions and the behaviors associated with them. And the 4 skills I'm going to be talking about today is 1, exploring and knowing our emotions, a technique I call ABC, surfing the wave, and the last one, lemonade. Last one's pretty fun. So this first skill, it's called exploring and knowing our emotions. So this is kind of a step-by-step process to best break down and better recognize what we're feeling in the moment. So the first step I'm going to talk about is naming our emotions. So I'll just start with an example of maybe sadness. And it could either be sadness, it could be hurt, loneliness, homesick, anything within that spectrum. So that's the first step, is naming our emotions. Now I'm going to move to the second step, which is what event caused the emotion. And I might give the example of you had maybe plans to go to a movie. And again, this is pre-COVID, but maybe you had plans to go to a movie with friends on a Friday night. Maybe something came up and one of my friends or a friend canceled plans that you maybe were looking forward to. You're having a rough week and you just want to get to the end of the week to hang out with your friends. And maybe those events got canceled. And maybe the next step is, what are our thoughts or beliefs that go with that emotion? So with that sadness in that event, maybe my next thought would be, I don't have close friends. I'm alone. Nobody likes me. So once that event happens to me, I might get these thoughts in my head that maybe aren't true, but that's what I'm feeling and when thinking in that moment. The next step, number 4, is what changes do we notice in our bodies? And it could be either feelings, urges, body sensations. So I might feel really heavy in my chest. I may be really overwhelmed, on the verge of tears, not being able to talk coherently without breaking down and crying, maybe feeling really empty inside, feeling really just icky. So those are kind of examples of things in our body that we might notice after an emotion comes up for us. And then the next thing to kind of explore and notice is kind of facial expressions or body language and actions. And it could be comments, behavior, moments that go with the sadness or that particular emotion. So maybe some body language or actions that might go with that is maybe moping, being really isolated, withdrawing from people. It could be either family or other people in our lives, talking just a little bit. So maybe if I'm a really talkative person, I might not say anything. Maybe more frowning, not being within my own body, things like that. And then the last step within this skill is going back to our secondary emotions. So after kind of that initial sadness, what is another emotion that kind of follows that? So again, our feelings about our feelings. So after the sadness, I might feel really embarrassed, really lonely, really frustrated, maybe even angry. So that kind of explains our feelings about our feelings. So how that feeling makes us feel in the afterthought. So that is this specific skill. Again, it's called exploring and knowing our emotions. Then this next skill I'm going to talk about, it's called ABC. So this is a specific acronym that is going to kind of help us when we're feeling a certain way, being able to use our self-care skills in a new and different way. So if I'm going to start with the first one, A. So the A stands for accumulate positive emotions. So we might have a varied kind of response to this, but these are kind of ways that we can practice positive self-care in our lives, pleasurable things, things we like. So I'd say like interests, hobbies, things we like doing, pleasurable things in life that we enjoy. And then there's 2 different types of these. There's short-term positive activities and long-term. When I say short-term, I mean more in the moment, things that we enjoy, like small things that we can do to maybe elevate our mood or help us get up if we're feeling down. So that might be maybe enjoying a sport or a hobby, listening to music, watching a certain TV show, getting outside and taking a walk. So just those short-term small things you can do in the moment to maybe elevate your mood or make yourself feel better. And then when we talk about long-term, when I say long-term, that might be a goal you're trying to reach or a value in yourself you're trying to increase. That could be like trying to volunteer more, having better relationships with your family, maybe being a better friend, or maybe it could even mean like meeting a goal, like getting a job, going to school to get a better job. So things that we can actually meet in that way in the long term. So that is A. So that's going to be the accumulation of positive emotions. And now we're going to move on to the next letter, which is B. So B is build mastery. So when I say build mastery, it often means for me to maybe practice. So when you start doing a skill, I'll just say, for example, riding a bike. So when we were a kid first riding a bike, we were on training wheels. So it took us a while to be able to practice enough that we didn't need the training wheels anymore. So maybe for being able to build mastery, we're going to engage activities that build maybe a sense of confidence within us, and a competence that we're able to meet that goal and rise to that occasion to meet that challenge. For example, maybe getting involved with the community, maybe practicing to make a community softball team, or maybe practicing auditioning for local community theater. Or it could mean just getting involved in maybe doing little things to meet people more. Maybe at home, via telehealth, being able to practice those skills to ultimately meet that goal. And then C stands for cope ahead. So when I say cope ahead, we're going to try to develop a plan to deal with expected or unexpected situations. So as we know, life can be crazy. We don't have control of it a lot of the time. So we want to find a way to kind of expect the unexpected in life and come up with a plan if things maybe aren't going the way we want them to. So for example, there might be a change of plans. You might have to give a presentation or do something different in your life that you weren't expecting. So being able to kind of understand that and figure out a plan of positive things you can do if those unexpected situations in life come up. So A, we're going to imagine the situation, and then we're going to use a coping skill effectively to kind of help gain that situation in a way that helps us in the long term. So for example, if maybe I had a presentation I wasn't expecting in work, what is a plan I can do to meet that goal? So I might be able to write a list of what I have to do. I might feel really nervous. So what are some calming techniques I can do within myself to be able to get to a place where I can meet that goal, but also give myself credit to not be perfect the first time. So again, building that mastery. But again, this coping ahead phase within ABC is kind of developing a plan to kind of plan out as much as we can. A lot of times we can't plan in all if unexpected events were to come up for us. So again, this is the second skill, ABC. And then this next skill I have, it's really cool. It's called surfing the wave. So a lot of times we have challenging emotions in life and it feels like they're going to last forever. So not only are we dealing with the physical and maybe the emotional presence of the emotion, but we're also dealing with the thought. So I'm always going to feel angry. I'm always going to feel sad. Things aren't going to get any better for me. Maybe having this hopeless thought like things aren't going to get any better, maybe not helpful for us. Because if we feel like they last forever, then it's going to be really hard for us to improve those feelings. So painful emotions, which are really hard to deal with and write out, may arise from maybe disappointing or difficult facts or situations or people. And maybe they're arising from other feelings like anxiety or depression that we're experiencing. So emotions can be strong at times, and it might feel like they're going to knock us over like a wave. And other times that might be weak, and the emotional waves come and we barely even notice it. And so again, like a wave, emotions rise and fall like waves in the ocean. So this skill is going to be called surfing the wave. So try to think about a crashing wave. So it gets really high, it crashes, but then it settles down and gets low again, and then might rise again and fall again. So the first thing that we're going to do is observe the emotion. So take some deep breaths and notice the emotion like a wave coming and going. As the emotion comes and is open, and we try to observe the feeling and try not to get rid of it or ignore it or block the emotion or even try to keep it around. So just try to observe it as best you can and notice it, but just be still in that moment and mindful as to what you're feeling in that moment, in that observation. And then the second part of this skill is be mindful of our bodies. So breathe and notice any body sensations. So scan our body from the top of our head to the bottom of our toes. Where do we notice any tension or any unspoken emotions? And allow ourselves to experience the feelings in our body and notice as they recede again, like a wave. Number 3, remember you are not your emotion. So as emotion hits, remember you're not your emotion and it will not last forever, even though sometimes if the emotion's really heightened, it might feel like that. So take a deep breath and imagine creating a separation between yourself as a person and the emotion you're experiencing. Imagine a sturdy wall, maybe even a brick wall between yourself and that emotion, maybe anger. Remember and reflect on the times in the past when you felt differently, when you weren't angry, when you were able to control that better. And the last step of the skills is radically accept the emotion. So try not to judge emotions within ourselves for having them. It's okay to have these emotions. They're going to come up. But practice radically accepting that emotion and validating yourself. Saying maybe I can deal with these emotions and get through to the other side. And I can accept my sadness right now. I know I can handle it and it will go away again. Again, like a wave. And this last skill I have, it's pretty fun. It's called lemonade. So when I think of lemonade, you often think of saying, make lemons into lemonade. So make the sour into sweet, or make it into at least a more positive reframe. So maybe it's more of a way of reframing our thoughts to a more positive means. So lemonade is the emotional regulation skill. It's often used in cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's also might be referred to, if you've used it in the past, as a cognitive reframe. So we're going to use it in a way to see negative events or feelings or thoughts from a new or a different perspective. So again, turning the lemons, the sour, to something more sweet. And maybe it helps us to take a belief and turn it from a weakness into a strength. So the first step in the skill is changing the wording, using gentler words, more positive words. So for example, the first statement, the sour, may be, I'm an idiot. And this would again reframe to, maybe I'm sad that I spent money I didn't have. So if we look at that example more in depth, we might say that this example, Annie's parents gave her money for rent and other expenses. Each month, she's in charge of paying the utility bill for herself and her roommates. In the month of November, Annie spent all the money from her mom, plus all the utility money from her roommates. Finally, she's broke and emotionally broken. She confesses her decision to her mom, so kind of tells her what's going on, that she doesn't have enough money to pay her bills. Annie's mom then pays the bill, and as a consequence, Annie has to forfeit all but one of her soon-to-be Christmas gifts. So at first, Annie might be humiliated and devastated. Then she asks herself, what can I learn from this situation and this experience? And being able to set a goal for herself that she'll be financially better in the future and she'll learn from her mistakes, and that she has supports in her life that can help her when she does make those mistakes. And again, our second part of lemonade is asking, what can I learn from this situation? And knowing that you can turn to your supports for help if you need them. Setting a goal for yourself, for Annie specifically, learning how to best budget money better in the future, and learning and maturing as a result of the experience. So again, I think with lemonade, I always think of the saying, turning sour into sweet. So reframing maybe our negative judgments in ourselves into a strength or something that we can grow on and learn from. So that's kind of the end of this presentation. So we talked about kind of ways to, or skills to best meet our emotions when they come up suddenly. I hope this presentation was helpful and that we can use these skills in the future to best give ourselves more choices when we're feeling really out of control in this time of uncertainty. Thank you so much. Bye.